So Toronto home buyers are walking a bumpy road, and at least that's what an article in the Golden Mail is discussing. It talks about how buyers that are in the market are very serious right now. It talks about how mortgage lending could be changing in the future, and also mentions that we may see the bottom of prices in the second quarter. Let's jump into it. I'm Michael Ouzas. I'm a realtor in the Greater Toronto area. Before we get started, throw a comment down below on what you think about buyers in today's market. If you ever want to book in a call with me to discuss what I've been seeing on the ground level every single day in the Toronto real estate market, in the first link in the description down below. So here's the article. Toronto home buyers walk a bumpy road. In a reversal of normal spring market, the number of sellers launching their properties onto the Toronto area market has been shrinking until now instead of expanding. It goes on to say that the spring market is bringing out tenacity in buyers as they grapple with high borrowing costs, vanishing sellers, and an undercurrent of uncertainty about the rest of the year. They interviewed a couple real estate brokers, and it says, this is not a tire kicker market. Anyone who is a buyer in this market is a serious buyer. So it goes on to say, in a reversal of the normal spring market, the number of sellers launching their properties on the market has been shrinking until now instead of expanding. New listings in the Greater Toronto area tumbled 44% in March from the same month of last year, according to the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. Sales in March fell 36% compared to March 2022. An average price dropped 14.6% to just over $1.1 million from just under $1.3 million. Now, Darren King, economist with the National Bank of Canada, notes that seasonally adjusted sales in the GTA rose 1.6% in March from February, and that despite early signs of the Toronto market stabilizing, the level of sales remains well below the historical average and will likely remain there for a while. With a decrease in new listings and a higher sales from where we saw in January and February, there are fewer active listings and a tighter market than the historical average. So with all those stats, it's really tough to decipher what is going on in the market. If you're just reading about sales and new listings, what I can tell you is that buyers who are out there right now are very serious buyers. And in those pockets where there is a huge desire for people to live, we're not seeing a ton of great listings come up. And every week, it's like you're hitting the refresh button to see what is coming next onto the market. Naturally, those properties are going to get more activity because there's just nothing else for those buyers who are looking to buy in that area. The article also goes on to say that Rishi Sandhi, economist at Toronto Dominion Bank, believes that Canadian home sales may have reached a trough after a dramatic slide in the past year. Average prices, meanwhile, likely have some modest downside left, and he forecasts a bottom for prices in the second quarter. One key risk to his outlook is the possibility that the federal banking regulator will add more rigor to the rules surrounding mortgage lending. Before we jump into those new rules, I will say that I actually think most of the drop happened in November and December, and we've seen prices actually increase about 5 to 7% from where things were in January. Now, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, aka OFSI, which oversees prudent residential mortgage underwriting, unveiled a proposed slate of stricter guidelines in January. And they keep discussing these guidelines as we're going along here. Basically, they are pointing to high household debt in Canada as one reason for examining the rules. The first phase of public consultation ends in April. Now, they're going to be considering feedback and a draft of the proposed revisions to the guideline before a second round of public consultations. They have not provided any kind of timeline for when a final guideline may be published. However, if they are published, federally regulated banks would be required to limit the share of highly leveraged borrowers they have in their mortgage portfolios. OFSI is also considering tightening debt servicing metrics and toughening the mortgage stress test. If those changes come in, high-risk borrowers will find it harder to qualify for mortgage with big banks. And some buyers may seek out alternative lenders which are not regulated by OFSI, while others may delay purchasing altogether. So it'll be really interesting to see if OFSI changes those rules and makes things more difficult for buyers to get approved for mortgages. And typically where those buyers will feel it the most is in that first-time buyer segment, as they are going to be undergoing further stress tests to get into the market. Now, I know in all levels of property buyers, we will see that effect come into play. But I do find that anytime they add things to the stress test or to mortgage lending, typically that affects first-time buyers the most, as they're usually doing their best to get into the market. And if new rules will limit their buying power, it's going to be tougher for them to purchase property, even at that entry-level price point. I'd love to hear your thoughts on buying in today's market, on if these mortgage lending rules will make a difference. I'm Michael Ouzas. Thanks for watching.